Hi, I'm Jose Anunciato, and you're watching the WebDev channel. All right, so the slides for Module 2 have been made available on Piazza, and obviously inside of your in your Blackboard. So let's talk about React. Okay. So JavaScript has been growing in popularity since a lot of applications have been moving over to the web, web versions of applications that we've grown accustomed to, and this has made a lot of pressure on having tools and frameworks that kind of like support a lot of the more modern techniques that that developers have become accustomed to. A lot of the same ideas that React and Angular and all these frameworks are introducing. These are concepts that have been around for at least a couple of decades, right? On the server side, right? They've certainly been around in Java for a while, and C# and all the on the server side web application. They've become very, very mature, and a lot of these ideas are now finding themselves a new home, right? They're finding themselves in the client side development side. Okay. To deal with fairly complex applications, these frameworks have created all sorts of design patterns that we have identified over the years, right? Yeah, and we'll see how these ideas of breaking up large applications into smaller components, that are running inside of a framework that provides all sorts of standard services, right, is becoming more and more common in client side, and these are all ideas that have been around for quite a while. So one of the also we needed to find ways of elevating the level of abstraction that we need to deal with the low-level JavaScript and the low-level DOM. And React certainly has come in and created a very simple way, a very thin layer on top of which we can abstract the low-level DOM manipulation. Right? What React does is that it abstracts the DOM so that you work with a virtual DOM as opposed to the real DOM, and it's able to optimize all sorts of operations on the virtual DOM. Right, so that things are cached, so that we don't necessarily go out to the DOM and do the manipulation, since that's a very time-consuming process. Right, so what React is able to do is abstract a lot of these and cache them and batch them so that they can be optimized and improve the performance of rendering things on the client. Okay. It also uses some of the more latest versions of JavaScript that support modules, support classes, support inheritance, support constructors, ideas that were kind of missing on the older version of JavaScript, but they're not fully supported across all browsers. What these new frameworks what they are relying on is transpilers, right? Somewhat like a compiler, right? A compiler would take your high-level Java application and compile it to something that can be actually run by the native infrastructure. So here's something similar is happening. What React and the newer versions of Angular do is that they take these newer versions of JavaScript and TypeScript, and they convert it into lower level JavaScript implementations that are common across all browsers, right? So that they can execute in older browsers that do not support any of these new features and all these new JavaScript features. And one of the more popular transpilers is Babel, and I invite you to take a look at Babel. Babel is able to do transpiling between all sorts of all sorts of versions of JavaScript and into a lower level implementation. Okay. So anyway, I invite you to take a look at this. We're gonna framework and infrastructure that we're going to be using is going to be using all these tools, all these transpilers to convert these high-level classes and plugins and components into lower-level JavaScript, right? That can be interpreted by any browser. All right, so here's a first presentation that introduces how to get React up and running on your machines. So here's deploying a very simple hello world, a React web application on Heroku, right? So first of all, we're going to be using the create a React app command. That's a Node.js implementation. So you'll need to have Node.js installed on your machine, right? And we're going to install the create React app module, right, globally. That's what the -g says here, right? So this says npm install -g. This is at the command line. -g makes it global, meaning that you're going to be able to execute this from anywhere in your command line. And then you can just use it from the command line, create React app space, and then the name of your application. Right here, we're creating a dummy application, my app, and that's it. You'll have a React application up and running. So let's create one. So let's create React app, and we'll call it webdev summer 1-2018 React Janunzi. And that test was me trying out last night, making sure it's still working. So that's going to take a while. While it sets up the environment, downloads all sorts of libraries, it installs the transpiler and builds everything, and then it'll be able to run it. To run it, you just you go into the directory, and then you just type npm start. npm, right? As we mentioned, did we mention? I don't believe we did. When you install Node, right? When you install Node, that was one of the requirements in the setting up the environment, right? You'll need to install Node.js, right? When you install Node.js, it installs a couple of executables. Two of them are very useful to us. One is the actual Node interpreter, right? That you can give it a JavaScript and it runs it from the command line. That's really all Node is, right? Node is just a JavaScript interpreter, right, for the desktop, right, as opposed to JavaScript running on the client on a browser. We typically think of JavaScript as running on a browser, yes, but what Node allows you to do is run JavaScript on your desktop, right, from the command line. So Node is one of the commands that is installed when you install Node. The other one is npm, which stands for Node Package Manager, right? It allows you to install new libraries, install new executables, right? Somewhat like Brew or some of these other package managers, or Maven, right? Maven also allows you to install all sorts of libraries, yes? But npm is for JavaScript, as opposed to Maven is for Java, right? So there we go. We installed it. Is it done? Okay, so we can now go into that directory. So React Janunzi. All right, so we're in there. And we can start it. We can say npm start. Very much like Maven, right? You can do Maven clean install, Maven, all sorts of commands. Same thing with npm. You can use it as a build tool, right? And so there's a task start, which actually starts the server and automatically has a plugin to start a browser session and points to where the server is listening at, right? So there it is. We have a boilerplate React application that is listening at port 3000, right? So it has its own little server. Right? We're going to have now two little servers, right? One is going to be our Java server, which is going to be the server. Right, so it's going to be hosting all the web services, It's going to be talking to a database, the data model, right? It's going to be doing the heavy lifting. And this one is only going to be doing client, right? It's only going to be hosting the JavaScript client, okay, written in React. And this is the boilerplate dummy application that is available there. Where's our? This is it. Okay. All right. So let's see. We're gonna get started from scratch, right? We're gonna blow away the boilerplate application that is given to us, right? We're gonna start creating our own application from scratch. So for that, we're gonna let's open up in our favorite IDE. Let's see. Let's open that new application we just created. I believe it's under webdev 2018. I believe it's this one. Let's open that. All right, so there it is. Okay, so let's see. What do we have here? We have package JSON. So package JSON is very similar to, has the same role as the POM file. Remember the POM.xml file that we talked about last week? There you can declare all sorts of dependencies, right? On JPA, on the MySQL connector and whatnot. Here, the package JSON plays exactly the same role, right? Here we're declaring dependencies on React, React DOM, React scripts, and those libraries get downloaded and installed under this directory, the node underscore modules, right? This is the equivalent of NPM downloading libraries. Typically, NPM, I believe, puts it under your home directory under a hidden directory called .m2. All the libraries should be there. Any JPA libraries that were downloaded, they're downloaded under there. Here, you can choose to download it in your local directory, or you can deploy them globally. Here, we have it locally. Anyway, so let's create just a hello. It's a hello world. Let's throw away all the source code for the boilerplate application is here under these files. Right? We can just blow them away. Oop, what did I say? Ah. Mark as original. Oh. Okay, they're gone. Right? So we don't want them. Instead, we're going to create our own. So let's create our own. New file index.js. All right, so here's index.js. Here's where we're going to do our hello world React. So one of the things that the new versions of JavaScript introduce is modules, right? Packages, things that very much like what you can break up now large application into packages, which is nice, right? Things that you couldn't do with you can't do with the current version of JavaScript. So one of the things that we can import libraries like React from packages, right? And we're also going to import React DOM. Okay. And then you can use React DOM to just render something here, right? What this says is that render DOM has a function called render, right? And it takes two arguments, right? One of the arguments is the actual content that you want to render, right? And the second argument is where in some index HTML file do you want to render this in, right? And this is a low level. Get me some element whose ID is root, right? So actually use low-level JavaScript, no jQuery, low-level JavaScript. Go fetch me the element, right, whose ID is root, right? Once I have a reference to that, I want you to render this in there. Notice the H1, the HTML is actual HTML. It's not a string. Notice there's no quotes around it, right? So we refer to that as JSX. Okay, just kind of like JavaScript with HTML embedded in there, right? Which is pretty cool. Once we have that, we can go back to our original, and there's our hello world. Notice I didn't have to compile anything or restart a server. It automatically reloaded the page, right? When we say npm start, right? It starts off a process that listens to changes, file changes, right? Any changes that any .js files change, they are transpiled again, right, to low-level JavaScript, right? And it has a plugin to talk to the browser to reload the page, right, with the very latest content. The actual content gets rendered right here in this index page. This index page, notice that it's got some links, whatnot, right? But here's the actual div with the ID root. See that? Right. That's what really gets served. Right. This is the index page that actually gets served, right? And the content gets injected dynamically into this root div. Make sense? And then that's what gets served. So a lot of magic is happening behind the scene, and we are looking to dispel all those magics in this course. Okay. All right. Let's leave it here. We'll continue tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, like the video, and share it. Thanks.